Bridestow Lavender Estate is a lavender farm and a distiller of lavender oil. It's also a very popular tourism destination and receives thousands of visitors per day during the summer months when the lavender is in bloom. Anna Robertson, the production manager at Bridestow Lavender, undertook a project to evaluate the effectiveness of composting methods that had already been trialled and to look at the adoption of larger scale resource efficiency strategies across the site. The company was focusing on reducing food waste, but soon discovered that primary packaging was actually a bigger problem. The business has a retail store on site, and many of the products are imported from overseas. Even though the business was composting many of its other waste materials, the cardboard couldn't be composted because of the tape that was used to seal it, which wouldn't break down.
For us, I guess it's being able to do as much as we possibly can.
The issue was that the business was too small to influence its suppliers to look for alternatives or design the tape out of the system.
I think that is part of the problem, because we seriously have no influence, because we're such a small business.
Yep.
And even for us, our minimum order quantities for most of the products that we bring in is actually 1,000 units. Sometimes that product itself has to then have a shelf life of 3 years, because that's how long it will take us to move that stock. So for us, we're a tiny drop in their ocean and not worth worrying about. So I guess what we're starting to do now as a business, because of that problem, and also with some of what's happened with COVID, so a lot of our supply chains are now getting more and more difficult to access. We're actually starting to look at doing on-site manufacturing in small runs, so small bespoke products.
Another problem was that there's no commercial recycling services in the area, and employees were becoming disengaged with implementing solutions. The purchase of a new toy, a cardboard perforating machine, meant that the business could recycle its cardboard waste and use it as a substitute for plastic bubble wrap in its own packaging.
Action learning, for me personally, was really exciting. Real people, real time, real experiences, and lots of different experiences too, like having people who had no clue in the world what a lavender farm was even about, coming in and looking at problems almost turned on their head. That I found really exciting, because they saw what I felt to be really, really big problems. There goes a visitor.
By the end of the program, the business's total waste volumes had increased significantly due to higher visitor numbers, but they had limited waste to landfill because they were extracting as much recyclable material as possible. Employees began to take ownership of the program and instigated some of their own initiatives.
Being able to be involved with people who had no understanding about what a lavender farm was, getting their inputs, because they turned almost every problem that I had completely upside down on its head, pulled it apart, and in many instances, what I felt was a really overwhelming problem that I couldn't see the end of, all of a sudden it was broken down into tiny manageable units, which I would never have been able to do on my own. So that interaction was really cool, and I made some amazing friends along the way.
TasTAFE Drysdale is a training restaurant, and Greg Hillier is one of the teachers that delivers the Certificate 4 in cookery. Greg wanted to establish best practice internal processes for waste management and small-scale composting. To complement these processes, he wanted to develop a training strategy for students undertaking a Certificate 4 in cookery. The teaching staff had already established a sustainability committee and wanted to introduce a culture of sustainability and recycling. A successful grant application provided funds to purchase a composting machine. Greg's main issue was that he hadn't really managed a project like this before, and he didn't know what was really involved in commissioning the composting equipment. The set helped Greg to work through what needed to be done in what order, and there were a number of set members who had experience with managing major projects. Greg's project was very experimental. He didn't have any direct examples of other training restaurants that had installed a composting machine.
The action learning was really good, because this sort of project is the first of its state. So the project hadn't
hadn't been done before. So at every step along the way, really, there was action learning. There was so much we didn't know, so much that we needed to know, but didn't know how to go about it. So it was a constant cycle, really, of try something, check it, go back, try it again, check it. And it was very multifaceted too, dealing with external stakeholders.
It took a long time to get the machine installed, and the day that it went in was pretty exciting. Greg completed a Certificate 4 in Sustainable Operations as a result of the work that he did during the project.
But at each stage along the way, the action learning from our meetings would provide a couple of things to either research or to go and check on or actually do. And it may only be a couple of little tasks, but they were always quite significant. And having groups of people, travelling that same journey meant that they could see it from a different perspective than what I did. Sometimes I was too heavily into it to see things that maybe they could see that were oblivious to myself.
Greg was really keen to close the loop and has been working on setting up a kitchen garden where the compost can be used. However, what he discovered was that the material that came out of the composter couldn't be used directly on the garden without being conditioned with other ingredients. By the end of the project, 80% of food waste was being put through the composter, but now the challenge is to find what to do with the compost. Jinglers Creek Vineyard is a boutique vineyard located in Relbia. Fiona Turner, vigneron and founder of Bitwise Agronomy, an agtech startup company, wanted to take on a project that would combine her two favourite things, wine and technology. Her project was an opportunity to learn more about drone swarm technology. Each year, just as the fruit is ripening, a small team applies approximately 2 square kilometres of polyester netting, which needs to be replaced every 7 years. Fiona's project explored the use of drones and related technology to reduce crop losses to birds. This would eliminate the need for nets. Over the period of the project, Fiona and her team built 3 drones and used swarm technology with an autonomous ground vehicle. Because the business is seasonal, there were limited opportunities for testing their solution. They overcame this by collaborating with other vineyards to conduct trials. Key issues were finding the right technology and the right partners, but they established a commercial relationship with a developer overseas for the swarm technology. There were compliance barriers as well, as their vineyard is located close to Launceston Airport. The project demonstrated proof of concept, and Fiona is now looking at how this can be applied across other industries as well.